All right, everyone, we are ready to begin. If you're still trickling in, don't worry about it. This webinar is going to be recorded, and anything you missed, you can watch the beginning. So my name is Jill Hendrix, and I will be moderating today's panel. I own the bookstore Fiction Addiction, which I founded in Greenville in 2001. I also work for the Professional Bookseller School as Dean of Inventory Management, and I'm an instructor in their store finances course. And with us today are representatives from Above the Tree Line and MVB. So let's start with Nikki. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, yes. My name is Nikki. I work at Edelweiss Above the Tree Line, same thing. I am a senior support education and product specialist at Edelweiss, as well as a former bookstore manager and book buyer.
And Ted, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi there. My name's Ted Hill, of course, and I'm the CEO of MVB US, which has owned and operated the Pubeasy and Pubnet services for the last 7 years. But of course, they've been around for quite some time with prior ownership by Nielsen and others. So
Okay, so we
happy to
have,
be here.
so let's go ahead and discuss what we're going to cover today. Basically the what, why, and how of direct ordering with our panelists, Nikki and Ted. So let's make sure that we're all on the same page and define our terms. Nikki, how would you answer this first question? What is direct ordering?
So direct ordering is just basically ordering your titles and other items directly from the publishers that produce them, rather than buying through a wholesaler or a third-party seller.
All right, and Ted, why don't you take our second question? Why is it important to order direct?
Sure. Well, there are really two answers to that. The first and foremost is that it is cheaper and it reduces your cost of goods, and that falls directly to your bottom line. But as important as it gets you a chance to really know your business better as you get to know each of the suppliers you work with, because they are not exactly the same.
So when you order indirect, there are only a handful of wholesalers that you might be using. But when you start ordering direct, the number of suppliers increases almost exponentially. Nikki, how many vendors are available to book buyers on Edelweiss?
Currently, we have a little over 400 publishers on Edelweiss that have their own catalog listings. Some of those being pretty large distributors like Ingram or IPG that can list really thousands of publishers or imprints under their main umbrella. So that 400 publishers encompasses over 140,000 imprints, which includes over 1.5 million titles.
Oh my goodness. And Ted, most of those publishers are also available through Pubnet as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. There are fewer on Pubeasy. We have the top 10 dozen major suppliers, the big five, Chicago distribution. And collectively, with all the publishers they distribute, it comes to about 300 plus. And as Nikki mentioned, when you on Pubnet, we have a much broader range. And when you include all the many publishers distributed by folks like IPG, it adds up to about 3,500.
So we may have already overwhelmed you with those numbers of vendors, but don't panic. You don't have to start ordering direct from everyone at once. Let's walk through the pros and cons so you can decide if starting to add more direct order accounts is a good decision for your store. Ted, what do you consider the biggest pro of direct ordering?
Well, as I mentioned, it's that extra discount and saving on things like free freight and so forth. You also get longer terms to pay, which can be great for your cash flow. And as we see, there are some extras that you get by working with sales reps and direct ordering, like signed stock exclusives and direct communications, and more visibility for the events that you put on. So there's a lot of intangible benefits that go along with the price savings.
Yeah. So Nikki, when bookstores use Edelweiss, they're usually using it in conjunction with a sales rep. So what do you find to be the benefit of working with sales reps?
Definitely those long-term relationships that you develop with your sales reps and publishers. Obviously, the financial piece is huge, but reps can, help you discover new titles that you've never heard of before, And the benefit of building those relationships is that your rep knows you, knows your store, and then can, you know, provide more curated recommendations for things you're more likely to sell. And then also just having an impact on the indie market as well. You know, you're contributing to indie sales data just by, you know, stocking your store. So that directly impacts marketing decisions, print runs, things like that. So you're making an impact on how publishers think of the indie market overall.
Mm.
So it's more than you might think just by ordering direct. So I will admit that the biggest con to direct ordering is the time it takes you to get up to speed, which is why we designed this webinar to help you. So we hope we've convinced you to at least try direct ordering. So let's discuss what you need to get started. Ted, why don't you take our first bullet point?
Sure. I mean, you don't have to start big. In fact, it makes a lot of sense to start small with a single publisher account. And most people start with their largest account. You don't have to. If you're a children's bookstore, it may be someone like Scholastic, even though Penguin Random House or SNS may be your largest account. But it's always good to start with one, and then you can learn the ropes on them.
And Nikki, can you explain what Edelweiss considers front list versus backlist?
Yes. So different publishers might have different time frames for this, but when you're looking at titles on Edelweiss, anything that is not yet published or that has a publication date within 3 months of when you're looking at it, that's front list. Everything else is backlist.
Great. Those are just some terms that you're going to need to know as you start ordering direct, because there are often different ordering procedures for front list books or not yet published books versus backlist. And sales reps, as we mentioned before, can be very beneficial, especially as your order volume grows. And if you don't have any reps yet, our handout will provide you the contacts you need to request them once you're ready. So Nikki and Ted are with us today because they represent two of the primary tools you can use to place direct orders. The beauty of their tools is that once you learn them, you can use each tool to order from dozens of different publishers. It's also possible to order direct from some publisher websites, but each of those sites differs in functionalities and how to do things. So it means learning a separate tool for each site versus just learning one tool that rules them all, that you can order all the publishers from. So Nikki is going to present Edelweiss 2 first, as Ted was very gentlemanly and volunteered to go last. So Nikki, let's take it away.
Thank you. So I guess first off, what is Edelweiss? At its core, Edelweiss is a digital catalog platform that publishers use to manage their catalogs and review copies. Edelweiss was established with booksellers in mind, and the goal was to have, like Jill mentioned, a central space where booksellers can streamline certain practices that are necessary for the maintenance of their stores, like title discovery. Edelweiss holds some of the most complete title information of any site. We have catalogs from all major US publishers. Title information on the site includes all the basics, you know, ISBN, pub date, etc. And then extras like marketing content, print runs, comparable titles, and more. You can also use Edelweiss to download review copies, browse reviews by other book professionals, request author events, and a lot more. So even if you're not ordering directly using Edelweiss, or if you're not ordering from all publishers directly yet, you can still use it to discover new titles and publishers that you might not have otherwise. So step one, if you don't have an account yet, is pretty simple. You'll just want to create your free account on Edelweiss. And all of what I mentioned on the last slide, ordering, communicating with reps, review copies, all of that is completely free to you. There's no cost to create an Edelweiss account, so you can really use it as much or as little as you need for your store. A couple of tips when creating your account: you'll want to use your work email or the email you prefer to receive communication from reps on, because that's what it'll be linked to. And select retail as your account type when creating your account. And so this is instructions for new accounts whose stores aren't on Edelweiss yet. If you think your store already has an Edelweiss account, you'll want to ask your user admin, usually the owner or the manager, to add you to the store organization structure, or you can, of course, always email us for help. Oh, and then, yeah, one more tip is just to update your profile to include your role, your store name, your region. Pretty much, the more information you have on there, the easier it'll be to get started.
I agree. If you put that you're a buyer or involved in buying, you get a lot of response a lot faster when you request a review copy.
Yeah, that's for sure. So then once your account is created and you're, you have your accounts set up with your publishers, and they've connected you as one of their accounts, you are ready to receive markups from your reps. So markups are essentially a digital version of the older method of marking up or writing notes on a paper catalog. Markups are a way for reps to give you crucial information that publisher catalogs may not contain, or highlight that information because, there's so much there and they really want you to focus on a certain aspect. So things like print run, co-op opportunities, discounts, the sales rep's feelings about a title, pretty much anything. There are a few elements of a markup to be aware of. Priority, which is at that top right corner of the screenshot, where your rep can give you an assessment on the importance of a title to you. So if it's high or a featured priority, for example, they're expecting good sales on this title or buzz, something like that. And they want you to know about it because you're probably going to want to order it. Markup notes are probably the most important piece. This is where your rep will show, notes like maybe tour information, title overviews, again, stuff that isn't included in the general title information of the catalog, either because it may be proprietary information, so things that they want you to know as a retailer, but don't necessarily want everybody to know. Or once you develop those more personal relationships with your rep, they could be more personal notes for your store. Then there are usually going to be tags, which are kind of quick keywords to help you find titles, or identify discounts on a title. Comp titles or comparable titles are going to be included in your basic title information. And those are there to help you evaluate similar titles to the one you're looking at, to help you get a feel for the book. But your rep can also star comps that they think you should pay special attention to as part of a markup. So say you sold a lot of copies of a comp title, they might highlight that to let you know that this book might be good for you to order as well. And then suggested order quantities. This is where reps can offer suggested buy quantities for their titles. And again, as you develop those relationships with reps, they'll be more knowledgeable about your store and suggest the quantities that they think you're likely to sell. So once you've kind of gone through your markup with your rep, you can create once you've received your markup, not reviewed it yet, you can create an order. I'm kind of going quickly through some stuff here, but the basics are that you will want to name your order. Lots of stores have their own methods for naming their orders, but you'll want to make them as descriptive as possible. So naming an order something like HarperCollins Kids Summer 2024, instead of just HarperCollins Summer, so that, you don't get confused with past or future orders. Even after your first year ordering directly, you're going to probably have dozens of orders. So trying to be as specific as possible if you ever need to find them later, can be very useful. And then you'll want to add, your order details, like a PO number, discount, comments, your appointment date. You can really add as much or as little as you need, depending on, your store's workflow and everything. And then if you have multiple store locations, just also specifying which store the order's for in the order as well. And then after it's created, you can start going through your marked up catalogs and adding order quantities and your store categories, which is how you'd like things to be organized in your store. And then, any relevant tags so that, if you want to find those titles easier later. So once you are done with that, going through a catalog and making your order, you let your rep know that you're finished and share it with them for review. Usually from here, you'll schedule a time to meet with your rep to finalize your order. And this is where you'll talk through any titles you have questions on, or if they think you have maybe missed a title that they think you should order. Again, that all depends on the relationship you have with your rep. So, different publishers might do things differently. But after your rep meeting, you want to finalize your order with any changes, and then let your rep know that it's ready for them to submit. And then you can download it to your POS system and mark it complete to clean up your workspace. I do want to mention one tip here too. Once you tell your rep an order is ready to submit, don't change it from there. Your rep might submit it while you're making changes, and that won't, so if you're doing that at the same time, it won't necessarily go through. You can usually contact them directly for urgent changes you need to make, but just changing something in Edelweiss without letting them know won't necessarily ensure that that thing is ordered. So yeah, that's just
And then my other tip would be make sure that your rep actually submitted your order. You don't want to have a miscommunication there where they think they're still waiting on you to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know I went through really quickly on that, hoping it didn't feel too overwhelming. Again, it's one of those things where you can start small and expand on when you're ready. And we also, have a very large knowledge base and support team to help with any questions you have. I did want to just kind of highlight some other best practices to kind of support your ordering in Edelweiss. And this includes customizing your homepage on Edelweiss, which you can do with widgets that you find yourself, they're essentially links to pages that you find yourself using the most. So like your work list, your orders, notifications, things like that, so that, once you log in, your homepage just has everything where you need to go. So you're not kind of searching for pages. Including your store's team on Edelweiss can make things a lot easier for you as a buyer. You can have as many booksellers linked to your store organization as you need, and they can take full advantage of, the digital review copies on the site and things like that, and title discovery, writing reviews. And so that can, really help if they start flagging like their staff picks or something. It can, help you find titles that your booksellers will be good at selling to bring into the store.
But you do have permissions, right, Nikki? So you can set people up to just view things, but not necessarily have ordering privileges.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone who's not a buyer, they don't need to have access to the ordering at all. And so there's no risk that they'll be accidentally messing with your orders when they shouldn't be. Another thing you can do on Edelweiss is map your categories, which can be a huge time saver. Publishers classify their titles using industry standard BISAC codes, but your store is probably not going to always match that one-to-one. And so what you can do is essentially find the BISAC category, tell Edelweiss where that gets shelved in your store. And then when you download your order and import it into your POS system, your store categories should already be there. So that when you receive the titles, you just have to mark them off as received, and they're already set to where they need to be shelved. for the folks who are doing that. You can also, once you're getting your relationships with your reps, you can really ask for what you need from your reps. So, I mentioned all of those markup attributes. If things like suggested quantities are not something you need to see or that you want, you can talk to them and they can really customize what they're sending to you based on, what will sell at your store. And then just this last little bit is Edelweiss also offers analytics tools, which these are a paid service, but it integrates with your POS system and inventory data so that you can see your sales and inventory numbers in Edelweiss, which can really just help speed up the ordering process. And then we have two tiers, two levels of analytics. So you can also get sales reports and kind of, sales reports essentially, as well as market data to help you make better buying decisions, as well as see what is working well for your store and what you can do better. And we do have several webinar sessions on analytics on our help pages. So if you're interested, please check those out. And then we often get questions on using Edelweiss without a rep. If you don't have a publisher account yet, or if you don't have a sales rep, you absolutely can still use Edelweiss without a rep. It's just the process might be a little bit different for you. You can still create orders in Edelweiss and export them to your POS system. And so from there, if your POS has EDI, you can still place an order directly with the publisher, or you can email the order to the publisher's order
entry team.
Thank you. For them to place directly for you. You can also, like I said, mostly everything on Edelweiss is free for you. So you can browse all the catalogs on Edelweiss and, discover new titles. You can take advantage of the digital review copies, write reviews, submit to Indie Next, all that stuff. You can see we get feeds for honors and awards. So like publisher starred reviews and things like that. If those are the kinds of titles you want to be bringing into your store, it's pretty easy to find those. And you can also monitor buzz in your region. You can, see what other booksellers are reading and reviewing. And so that can really help you with those ordering decisions of titles that you want to bring in because other folks might have heard of them and be interested in them as well. Last thing too, we also have an event grids feature where publishers post their touring authors information. So you as the store can send in your bids to host a specific author event. And that also, helps you build relationships with publishers as well.
So let me chime in and tell people that event grid feature is not automatically enabled. Usually you have to go to the publisher and request it. And so it is helpful to have a rep to get that turned on. But I know people that just, they're not even a bookstore, but they run a big book fair and they can submit event grids even though they don't have a sales rep.
Yes, thank you. And for those, you can usually go to the publicity department at a publisher and they should know how to turn that on for you. There's a lot you can do.
Thank you, Nikki. So now we're going to turn it over to Ted to talk about Pubeasy and Pubnet.
Helps if I unmute. Great overview, Nikki. Edelweiss is an amazing product that does so much. So let's talk for a bit about Pubeasy and Pubnet. We call them electronic ordering and customer self-service for booksellers. Electronic ordering is obvious. It's placing your orders without having to worry about lost emails or placing them over the phone. Some people even still fax them in, and all sorts of problems occur. When you place them electronically through a single source, you reduce errors, and you have a whole bunch of other benefits. What is customer self-service? It's basically getting some answers to your questions, such as, all right, do you have this title in stock? What's the current price? Where is my order? A few things like that that we also provide as part of our service. Now, the biggest question I always get, especially at a place like Winter Institute, where we go every year, is what's the difference between Pubeasy and Pubnet? And we've talked a little bit about it. Top line, Pubeasy is a web portal, username, password, you log in like Edelweiss, and you can start using it. It's free, of course, to booksellers. It's easy to get online, and it's easy to use, and it's easy to order. Pubnet requires having an EDI capable point of sale system. For those of you who don't know what EDI is, it's an old technology, but very stable, called electronic data interchange. And it's basically a fixed format to send your purchase orders and get acknowledgements and so forth, so that you can have machine-to-machine communication without errors between your point of sale system and your publisher's ERP, fulfillment, et cetera, billing systems. So that's the technical distinction. But in practice, there are a few more things you should know about, and we have this handy grid. Oops, go back. Yes. So Pubeasy has the dozen largest suppliers, which collectively have more than 300 publishers. Chronicle Books is on there, distributed, I think, by SNS, et cetera, et cetera. So you can order from probably most of the publishers that you buy the majority of your inventory from. Pubnet has all of them too. As I mentioned, Pubeasy is direct ordering from a website. You can put in a list of ISBNs and get the prices on all of them and availability real fast. And you can go in and you can check the status of your orders all through a single website for all of the publishers who are on Pubeasy. So one single source to get all this stuff. We have lots of additional publishers and distributors on Pubnet. So the count is somewhere around 3,500. It changes every day. But if you have specialties in areas, say the Christian market, or you buy textbooks, or you order from academic publishers, many of them are also on Pubnet. So you have a much broader selection. And of course, as I mentioned, the order, you never see Pubnet. Your POS system talks to Pubnet. You just talk to your POS system. And one thing that's great about it is you get back purchase order acknowledgements and shipping confirmations and notifications, and in some cases, invoices. So we'll get a little bit more into that in a second.
So my favorite feature, Ted, of those order confirmations is it tells me that the price has increased, because every time I order something,
yes, it does.
the price has increased.
It's so nice to get them, and they're all there in your POS. All right, go ahead.
Oh, what was the first step for people?
All right, so the first thing obviously is to register. Pubeasy, as I mentioned, is free. You can go do that today. I'll be happy to place the registration link into the chat. And you can start ordering online if you have existing accounts. Pubnet has an initial $75 setup fee, which we are happy to waive if you're serious about using it. And joining this webinar tells us you are. So you can put in a promo code, webinar 2024, and we will waive that fee. One thing that you do need to use Pubnet is a SAN number, which stands for a store address number. It's a single number that identifies your store address. Sometimes people spell addresses differently, Ave versus Avenue, et cetera, et cetera. If you have a SAN number, your books will always wind up where you want them to go. Normally, you can buy these from Bowker for $150. As a courtesy to our new customers, we will often waive them, as anyone on this call. So that's $150 value. Once you've registered, you contact your POS provider or go to the Pubnet site where we have some support for this that tells you how to get going with Anthology or Booklog or whatever. And then you start the ordering process through your point of sale system.
Right. So how does ordering work with Pubeasy or Pubnet?
Sure. To just get started, there's not a lot to know. You can go in and start putting ISBNs into search and then add them to your shopping cart. There is an initial step, which is a one-time process of what we call linking our accounts, where you go to the account linking page and you select Simon & Schuster, say, or HarperCollins, and you put in your account number and you send them a linking request. They check and they say, oh yes, we know who you are. You have an account with us, and they open you up for purchasing on Pubeasy. So once you've linked your accounts, you can build your order. And there are several different ways to do it. What we think is the best practice is to build your orders over time, especially if you're building up backlists or summer back to school promotions or any number of things where you want to store titles that you don't need immediately, but you know that you will need to order them at some point, and you can build that order over time until you hit your minimum for free freight or additional discount or whatever. And you can have lots of different order lists that you build for each of your major suppliers until you're ready to actually place that order. But if you just want, if you know what you want, if you've got a list out of Edelweiss and you want to pop them into the shopping cart, a string of ISBNs, you can do that too. And you know, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, when you do put in a list of titles, I'm sorry, Jill, do you have a question or a comment?
I think I was going where you're going. No. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we're on the same page then. One of the great things about it is if you have a list of books that you want to return as one of a tip, you can go in and pop in that list of ISBNs and see if none of them are out of print and therefore still available for return. If you have a bunch of titles that you've just been thinking about for a sci-fi or a romance promotion that may be from different publishers, you can put that list in, and Pubeasy will sort it into separate shopping carts, so you don't have to worry about placing an order with the wrong publisher. And finally, you can do it whenever you like, 24/7. As Nikki mentioned, there are a lot of best practices when you create your orders. You know, you should make sure you have a PO number that will identify what it is. Some people put the date in their PO number or something like that. If there's a promo code, they may want to put promo or something like that in their order name. But then you just check your minimums and you submit your order.
So Ted, let me ask you one question, going back to that
Sure.
order linking process. So Pubeasy doesn't keep any credit card information, just like your point of sale doesn't keep, you know, your credit card information for ordering with the publishers. So when you're linking your account, one of the things they're checking is whether you have a terms account versus prepaid. Is that right?
That's an excellent point, Jill. Yes. Yes, we do not want to be in the business of holding your credit card information. So if you only purchase via credit card, then neither of these systems would be right for you.
But the good news is, even if you signed up prepaid, you can usually switch your account once a year back and forth. You just need to talk to the publisher about the way to do that.
Yes, excellent point.
And here's a little screenshot to help you visualize more what Ted was talking about.
Yeah, Pubeasy looks like a lot of platforms you may be using. There's cover images and information about the books that you would expect to see in a catalog. That little green dot, if you can see it next to the image of the title that says available, shows you that it's in stock. You can put in your quantity and you can add it either to a shopping cart or to an order list. And if you look over to the right there, it shows that this sample has several different shopping carts that they're building for their different suppliers. And so you can keep it all sorted out.
So that's easy. And now we're ready for Pubnet.
Yes. So it's a little bit hard to really show you the workflow in Pubnet because, as Jill has mentioned, it really depends on the workflow in your point of sale system. But we'll show you screens in a minute, but what it looks like in Anthology. But the process is very similar. You build your order in your POS. Sometimes you've just pulled in your front list order and you're ready to go from Edelweiss, and you just pop it into your POS and it'll flow out through Pubnet to your suppliers. You add your promo codes, of course. Always double check those minimums. If a title is out of stock for some reason, it may pull you down. So it's always good. It's the best practice to take one more look before you hit the button. And then you hit that button. And one thing that's really, really cool is that you'll get back what's called a purchase order acknowledgement. In some cases within minutes. always generally before the end of the day. It really depends on when the supplier system checks checks to pick up the orders. But you'll see in that if any books have been back orders, or if your shipments are going to be split, or if there are any other problems with it. So you get that reassurance that, okay, my order has been received and they've got it, and I don't have to worry about it too much. Another thing is that some POS systems, many of the ones that we'll show you on our list in a moment, will also send you advanced ship notifications, which is your book has been shipped. And again, it has useful information if shipments have been split, or partial orders have been filled, or if titles are completely out of stock. So you'll know when the books are coming, or in some cases when they're not coming, and you don't have to contact your rep or contact customer service to get that information. So yes, there you go. Here is an example of Jill's anthology system. I find it a little scary. If you use anthology, it'll look very familiar, but what you may use Booklog, you may use Book Manager, iMerchant, Basil. There's a lot of great POS systems out there. One thing you should know is that there is a difference between what we call EDI capable, publishing specific point of sale systems, and more generic systems like Square and Clover. You cannot use Pubnet if your primary POS is Square, although we're working on that. And you can use Pubeasy with some of those generic POS systems, but it's not quite as smooth and automated a process as you have when you do have a true bookseller specific POS system. So ways to get started. Or Jill, are you taking this page?
I can. So I suggest that you register for a free Pubeasy account, even if you primarily use Pubnet. You never know if something's going to go wrong with your point of sale system or your computer that's hosting the point of sale system and you have an emergency order. It's just nice to have that all set up so that you have a backup plan. And then I would also suggest that you learn how to export orders from Edelweiss or Pubeasy into your POS, whichever you're using, whether it's a book industry one or if it's something like Square. And then once you start ordering direct from publishers, you're going to be eligible for co-op. So the way that co-op is short for cooperative advertising money, and you can get it even if you've ordered some of your books from a wholesaler like Ingram. So I suggest asking Ingram to enable co-op reports for your account so that you can submit that to the publishers, and you can also use those reports, sort them by supplier, and see which one is your largest one that might make sense to open a new direct account if you don't already have it. So we think that if you're doing, $5,000 a year in business with one publisher, that's a good threshold to consider opening a direct account with them. It's worth the money that you're going to save. So that's our recommended threshold. And then if you are using Pubnet and you're submitting your orders through your point of sale systems, you do just want to make sure that you are checking those confirmations when they come in. Don't just click OK and have it disappear, but actually take a look at it because it does tell you useful information there.
Jill, I have a question for you.
Sure.
How do you know if you do $5,000 worth in yearly business with a publisher? There's so many imprints. What's an easy way to find that out?
Well, that's where I think that co-op report helps, because you can sort it that way and I'll tell you, and then your point of sale system might also give you that information. I know mine, the way that I have it set up, I can get that information, but if you haven't set up your point of sale that way, I think the Ingram content co-op report is the best way to go. So we talked about different supported book industry point of sale systems, and both Edelweiss and Pubnet integrate with these systems to bring you additional functionality. But as we mentioned, even if your POS is not on this list, you can still use Edelweiss and then the Pubeasy platform from MVB. And now we're going to discuss how to get started with direct ordering for your disparate stores. So every bookstore I know who does direct ordering still uses wholesalers, especially for customer special orders. So I suggest thinking about how many of those special orders you take in a day or a week, and whether you're easily hitting your wholesaler minimum or if you're currently struggling to do so, because that's going to affect how easy it's going to be for you to shift some of your ordering to direct. Next, we want to consider how early you like to order front list. Nikki, can you walk us through what catalogs are going up on Edelweiss now and when those books actually publish?
Sure, yeah. So publishers try to work as far ahead as they possibly can, in order to, give their titles enough lead time to generate buzz, and most importantly, enough time to have their sales reps work with stores on creating orders. So it's currently July 2024. So I think generally speaking, the fall 2024 orders are probably finalized or being finalized for most stores. And we have winter and spring 2025 catalogs starting to come out. So again, depending on the publisher, will determine the season name, but winter spring 2025 can be anywhere from late December of this year to April of next year. So pretty far in advance.
Yeah, that takes some getting used to if you haven't been ordering front list direct before. And then you should also think about how much new book inventory your store wants to carry on its shelves. So a used bookstore with a small new book section is going to have different needs than a store that's 95% new books. And lastly, think about how comfortable you are managing extra vendors and doing additional financial oversight. When ordering direct, I usually get 60 to 120 days before my invoices are due. That extra dating is great for cash flow, but those bills do eventually have to get paid, and so you may need to add some new processes to manage your spending. For myself, I had to start tracking accounts payable as a liability in my accounting software so I could see what was coming due and plan for it. Stores I know of who are starting with direct ordering tend to go one of two ways. They either start with front list ordering or they start with backlist. However, there's no right or wrong way to start, and you could even do a hybrid approach if that makes sense for you. I personally started with front list ordering because I was a smaller store and it was easier for me to make those minimums with a front list order that covers 4 months of a season. And then later I heard Ted present at Winter Institute and worked with my POS provider Anthology to get my vendors set up for electronic ordering. And so now I would say I order at least 75 to 80% direct. We have prepared 4 handouts for y'all for joining us on this webinar. Nikki, can you explain how our attendees can access them?
Yes. So everyone, since you're registered for this webinar, you will receive an email with links to the handouts as well as a link to this recording. And I'll drop them in the chat as well right now in case you want to get started.
So the first one is that handout we showed a picture of about how to get your own book rep if you already have a publisher account but no sales rep. It also has helpful information about who to contact to open the account in the first place. We've got some of the bookseller tips and tricks for effective direct ordering. And then what I've been talking about here about developing your strategy for ordering direct and the things to consider. And then we've got some of those screenshots from Edelweiss on how to do direct ordering on their platform. For those of you familiar with the Professional Bookseller School, you know us for teaching live classes on inventory management, store operations, event management, store finances, and basic bookselling. But not everyone can make our class times, and so we're excited that we've recently launched independent study courses so you can learn on a schedule that works for you. And I'll put that URL in the chat in a few minutes. So next steps. We congratulate you on taking this first step by attending the webinar to learn more about direct ordering. And to keep your momentum going, we have some suggested steps for you to take next. Maybe one of those PBS self-study courses looks interesting. as Nikki mentioned, Edelweiss has a ton of help tutorials. So if you want to start working on Edelweiss ordering for front list, that's a great place to start. And if you have one of those POS systems on that supported list, applying for your free SAN and Pubnet account will save you $225. So don't forget that. And then I'm going to give you our contact information from our panelists so you can follow up with them. And then we're going to open it up for questions. Okay. So I think Nikki's going to let us do questions now in the chat. But in the meantime, I've put the link to the PBS independent study. And Nikki, you said we had already gotten one question?
I believe someone has their hand raised. A couple people have their hand raised.
Oh, awesome. Do you want to manage that?
Sure. So let's see. Okay. I guess Brenda Arnett, I'm gonna turn your mic on.
Yes. We don't have a POS system. We still do our inventory by hand, and basically I order through the internet, but it's not connected to a POS system. How does that affect me when I'm trying to use these ordering systems? I have used Pubeasy. I tried to use Edelweiss the other day and got hopelessly confused.
So for the Edelweiss part of things, you absolutely can use all of this without linking it to your POS system at all. If it makes it easier, you can always like export orders that you're doing to Excel files and either save those on your computer or print them, however you do that to keep track. Probably the first step that I would guess you may be missing to the ordering process is having that sales rep connected to you via Edelweiss. Your publisher accounts, once you have those set up, they should pair you with a sales rep. If they haven't, you'll want to be in touch with them to get assigned a sales rep, and then they need to connect with you so that you can send your orders to them directly. Otherwise, you may be able to add things to orders, but it's not going to be submitted unless you go through that rep.
Thank you.
We're already using Pubeasy, but is there anything you wanted to add there, Ted?
No.
Yeah, that would be the one to use because Pubnet needs the POS. So
yeah,
it's good that you already have that account signed up for Pubeasy. What's our next question, Nikki?
Dean, I'm gonna enable your mic.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. We have a small number of publishers set up, and I'm getting familiar with Edelweiss and also Pubeasy in the future. When we set up new publishers, is it typical for them to allow us to purchase on a prepay without having an account set up, or do we need the account and the terms? I guess my question is, are the terms and the account set up the same, or is it normally more that we can start buying at some small discount first and then get a bigger discount and terms later? How does that process typically work with the publishers?
So it's been a while, but usually you choose from the get-go whether you're a prepaid account or a terms account. And either way, they still may put a cap on the amount that they let you order, in the beginning, and you might have to request an increase. And usually to apply for a terms account, you have to create something called a credit sheet, where you give them your bank account reference so that they can check your credit history. And if you already have, anything helpful for that, like a Dun & Bradstreet number or other terms accounts with other publishers that they can call and be like, hey, do they pay their bills on time? Anything that's going to reassure them that you're a good credit risk.
Okay. But we can, if we want to place initial orders, in some cases, we can bypass that and just go ahead and set up the prepaid account.
Yeah,
And
you can
she's
set that
bumping
up
up
with the
that process
publisher.
if in the initial volumes. Okay.
Yeah, you'll
Great.
just have to order directly from them, either their phone rep or their own business site. You wouldn't necessarily be able to use some of these other tools.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. So I want to, I guess, address some of the chat questions and then go back to verbal questions. So a couple of questions about different POS systems that were not on that supported list.
Yeah.
So I know a couple of them, and I can just speak for the Edelweiss side of things. Things like Shopify, Lightspeed, and Clover are not compatible with with Edelweiss. We've, you know, just speaking from our side of things, we've tried to work with them in the past, but they don't have they can't generate the data that we need. That being said, though, I am happy to work with any stores if you want to email support to see if we are able to at least get like an order export that you'll be able to import into Shopify. I'm not super familiar with like the actual data points you would need for that, but we can, you know, with Edelweiss, you can create custom exports. So hopefully that's something we can at least make easier. But it's not something, at least from our end at the moment, that can integrate with things like analytics.
And I wanted to address one of the questions in the chat about whether Edelweiss is primarily for front list or whether you can do backlist through it. And, you know, you can order whatever books appear on Edelweiss, whether they're front list or backlist, but the tool was designed to mimic, you know, how you work with sales reps and printed catalogs. And those sales reps are primarily selling you seasonal front list. Now, from time to time, the publisher does a backlist promotion and has a promo code, and your rep is great for putting those in. But if there's not a promo code going on right now, and I just need to reorder 5 copies of Lessons in Chemistry, I usually don't do that in Edelweiss. I do that in my point of sale system because it uses Pubnet and it goes through like instantaneously, and I don't have to worry, is my rep on vacation and they're not going to see that order kind of thing. When you're doing front list, you're ordering so far in advance that there's plenty of time in there. So it doesn't matter if your rep takes a day or two to put it in.
Yeah, Jill, I'd like to add that when you are ordering, taking your selection out of Edelweiss and putting it into your POS for ordering, you are ordering through Pubnet. The question really is, how quickly do you need a response? And also, more importantly, what is your style? A lot of booksellers really try and consolidate all of their ordering in their POS system, so all that information is in one place. But not everybody does. Some people like to send an order off to their rep because it makes them happy. So it really is a matter of what works for you. And
Edelweiss has some great backlist catalogs where you're saying, hey, my gardening section needs some work. And then you can go to the, you know, Story Publishing through Hachette has great gardening books. So you can go browse their backlist catalog on Edelweiss and just draft together something. So it really depends on what you're trying to do and how you like to work. Anything else you want to add there, Nikki?
No, that's all good.
We did get some other questions in the chat that Nikki responded to from the Edelweiss perspective. I would like to say that for folks using Shopify and Clover and Square, we have been actively researching what's the best way to smooth the process to enable electronic ordering between those platforms. And there may be some news on the Square front this year, but we're really trying to take a holistic approach. It is very important to us to bring in those booksellers who use those platforms, but probably not until next year.
Yeah. And there was another one from Rachel asking about that auto sort feature into the different publishers that Pubeasy does. And that's another reason to create a Pubeasy account, even if you mostly use Pubnet, because my POS doesn't do that. Like it doesn't know and it won't auto sort. I have to do it manually. So sometimes I get like a big school order and I'll go stick it into Pubeasy and have it do the sort for me and then bring it back. So that's a cool feature that's just Pubeasy as far as I know.
Even if you don't actually put it into the shopping cart, if you prefer to order another way, it's a very handy tool. Or if you've got a bunch of returns you want to make and you want to sort those, useful for that too.
Yeah. And there's one about lists in Ingram, and you can do collections in Edelweiss, and there's lists in Pubeasy. You can also do tags in Edelweiss. So depending on what you want, a more ad hoc system might be a tag. I use tags a lot for stuff like that. Nikki, there's a question about sharing the documents and the recording.
Yeah, from our end, I assume, Ted, that's fine to share from your end too.
Oh, absolutely, of course.
Yeah. And the recording will hopefully be up later this afternoon on that help doc that was linked earlier in the chat. But again, you'll also get an email with links to it. Let's see. So also a question of a brand new bookseller recommending resources for learning about the 400 plus publishers on Edelweiss. I'm guessing that you mean like learning who distributes what and where you should be ordering from. We can definitely help you, find the places on Edelweiss where you would find that out. A lot of it, and Jill, please feel free to jump into with your personal experience. I think a lot of it is takes practice, because unfortunately imprints tend to move around.
Yes, they do.
And who distributes them, and depending on whether it's an imprint or a distributed publisher, might depend on whether you have one sales rep or you have a different sales rep for that different imprint. But I know I'm happy to help kind of help you organize publishers that you work with, to help you kind of clear out that clutter on Edelweiss, and then also finding publishers as well.
And there were a couple of questions about Canadian booksellers. Do both of you want to address that? Do your tools work for Canadian booksellers?
Yeah, let me say first that I just put our support email into the chat. If you have a question for us, you can send it to supportus@mvb-online.com. And to let you know that we do have, for example, Simon & Schuster Canada and Penguin Random House Canada and some others on Pubeasy. And we white label Pubnet in Canada in conjunction with BookNet Canada. So there are a lot of Canadian suppliers, but you obviously have accounts with them if you want to order from them on Pubnet.
Yeah, and that would be the same on Edelweiss too. You'd have to get in touch with your publishers to know your sales reps and to know which titles can be sold in your country, just because sales rights are also a complicated part of the business.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, and usually your terms with your publisher apply no matter how your order is placed. Occasionally, you'll get an extra 1% if you use any of the electronic ordering platforms, as opposed to like a phone rep, like calling customer service rep on the phone and going ISBN by ISBN.
They hate that.
Yeah, they hate that. So they kind of penalize you for that. And even with email, they're having to cut and paste and things can fall through the cracks, sort of thing. So if you use electronic ordering, sometimes you get a little extra. And then I found that, most of the time it doesn't matter how I order, but if I'm not sure I'm quite hitting the minimum or whatever, if you go through your rep, they can just double check things for you, and maybe they can overwrite something if you were like below the minimum. Sometimes they have a little more free reign. So that's about the only difference I find.
We do have a question too on how to manage special orders with ordering direct because larger orders get sent to publishers, but maybe not as often as you get special orders in. So customers end up waiting a lot longer for special orders. I don't know if Jill, you want to speak to this more since you probably do this every day. I know at the store I worked at, we did, do most special orders unless they were like front list books that would be coming in quickly anyway through a wholesaler like Ingram, just because you do just only have that.
We do cover some of that in the handout on
Okay.
strategies for direct ordering, but Jill is an expert on this, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Nikki. That's what for a customer special order, if it's not something I already have on order that's popping in the future, we go to the wholesaler first, as long as it's in stock. If it's not in stock, then you want to have a good sense as you start ordering direct, is you want to kind of keep track of how long it takes the publisher to ship you an order, because that's really going to help you decide. And then that's the other place where, maybe you email your rep and you're like, hey, I just desperately need this book for my customer and I don't have enough to make a minimum. Can you override? Is there any way you can get it shipped? And sometimes they will, so that's another great strategy.
Thanks. Yeah, and I do want to mention too, Edelweiss does integrate with Ingram wholesale warehouses. So when you look at a title, you can actually see how many copies are in stock at your Ingram warehouse. And that can also help with those decisions as well.
So Nikki, do you know if somebody's got a prepaid account, would they even have a rep that they could use ordering through Edelweiss, or they're really gonna have to go directly to the publisher with the prepaid?
That is a good question. I think they're gonna have to go directly to the publisher, but unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually what happens is, like, in order to actually order through Edelweiss, you have to have that rep assigned because they're the ones submitting the order. So it could be that if you're prepaid, it's just very difficult to get a sales rep to start with. But you could still create your order on Edelweiss and then order however you normally do, with that publisher.
So a quick question on discount terms, being the same between Edelweiss and Pubeasy. From our point of view, all discounts and shipping and availability, all of that is set by the publishers and would be communicated to you through your sales rep. We don't have keep lists of those, again, because they can change all the time and they're different per publisher. So your discount terms are going to be something you work out with your publisher accounts.
Yeah, and the same thing with minimums. So a lot of terms, including minimum orders, are account specific. I mean, I don't think they have separate terms for every single, individual account, but they'll sort you into tiers. And they'll be like, your tier of account, these are your terms. And Pubeasy doesn't know that. Edelweiss doesn't know that. So there's not a way to really be like, to check and see, do I make my minimum? You have to know that and check, or you have to send it through a sales rep or a customer service rep and ask them to check to make sure that you've met the minimum.
Also a question about the feature for importing lists from Edelweiss to Pubeasy. Is there a how-to for that somewhere on the site? I believe there is one on
on the Pubeasy support site, maybe, or is it the Edelweiss support site? I think it's.
I believe we have one as well, but Sarah, who asked the question, I can also email you that link directly and help you out if you need to kind of customize that more. Because, yeah, definitely copying and pasting ISBN by ISBN is the worst, and anything we can do to save you that time, we'll definitely do.
And we got some great feedback from people who are prepay and are using Edelweiss through reps, so that is possible.
Let's see.
Well, hopefully we got to everything, but if not, let me see if I can put our contact information up here again. Whoops.
Oh, okay. Someone
Like
someone said in the chat too, you can order via Edelweiss with a rep if you are prepay. They do it all the time. So that's good to know.
Great. I think maybe that's it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn, everybody, for those who are still here. And I see there's actually quite a few, but it's a process that takes time. And the good news is that you don't have to do everything at once.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today, and look for those handouts and the recording from Nikki. She's going to send it after the webinar.
All right. Thank you, Jill. Thanks, Nikki.